That can be incredibly painful to feel like your father has chosen his new family over you, and the pain can linger and affect how you see yourself.
I've thought about that, but it's still hurtful to think that even if it was his own choice, that he would continue to choose his new wife and stepchildren over his only biological daughter. I know that if something happens to my dad, I'm not going to be able to go to his funeral, or I probably won't even know about the funeral. And so I was like, why am I'm grieving my dad now while he's living practically? Because if something happens, he's getting up there in age, I'm not going to be able to have any contact. And I know that's how it is, because right now they live in a ritzy neighborhood, with security, and I'm not allowed basically in there.
How was your weekend?
Oh, very good. Yes, relaxing. What about yours?
Pretty good, relaxed. So I know the last time we met, you shared a little bit of relationship about with your dad and how it impacted your sense of self. How are you feeling today about since our last session?
I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about, and I've started using affirmations. They help a bit, but I still feel this deep sense of rejection. It's like no matter what I do, I can't shake the feeling that I'm not good enough for him, my father.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. It's understandable that you're still feeling that way. These are deep-seated emotions that take time to process. When you say you feel like you're not enough for him, what specific thoughts or memories come to mind?
There's so many that stand out for me, but one was graduating college. I worked so hard and I thought he'd be proud of me, but instead of congratulating me, he asked me what the next steps were, like as if graduating college, wasn't enough already. It just made me feel like my accomplishments didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. And that memory clearly left a significant impact. It sounds like in the moment you were hoping for a validation and acknowledgement, but instead you received pressure to do more. That must have been incredibly disheartening for you.
Yes, it was. And it's not just that one time. I feel like every time I accomplish something, I expect to feel proud, but then I just end up feeling like it wasn't good enough.
Okay. And this cycle of seeking validation, then feeling like you've fallen short, can be exhausting and deeply hurtful. It sounds like your father's expectations have shaped the way you view your own achievements. So let's kind of explore that a little more. How do you feel when you think about your accomplishments without considering his reactions?
When I try to focus on just myself, I do feel proud, but it's fleeting. It's like that pride doesn't stick because I'm so used to measuring myself by what he thinks.
And it's normal to feel that way, especially when parents' approval has played such a central role in our lives. However, it's important to start shifting that focus from external validation to internal validation, finding pride and satisfaction in your achievements for yourself. What do you think it would take to strengthen that internal sense of pride?
I guess I need to start believing that my accomplishments are enough. Even if he doesn't always acknowledge them, I'm just not sure how to do that.
Okay, and that's a great insight so far. It might be helpful to begin by reinforcing the idea that your accomplishments are valuable on your own without needing anyone else's approval. One way to do this is generally just like reflecting on your own accomplishments and recognizing the effort and dedication that went into them. How would you feel about doing a self-acknowledgement journal as homework?
I think that sounds interesting. What would that involve?
Okay, so for the journal, it's each day. I'd like you to take a few minutes to write down at least one thing you accomplished that day. It doesn't have to be something big. Anything that made you feel good or took effort counts. Then write a few sentences about why this accomplishment is meaningful to you personally without considering how anyone else might see it. The goal is to help you internalize your sense of pride and starting to see your achievements through your own eyes.
I like that idea. I think it'll help me focus on why I accomplish what I do and the accomplishments that I've done versus what I think he wants from me.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly right. This exercise can help you shift your focus to your own perspective, reinforcing the idea that your accomplishments are worthy of recognition, regardless of external validations. We can review your journal together in our next session to see how that's going for you.
That sounds great. I look forward to that.
Okay. Now let's change focus and talk more about the feelings of rejection you mentioned in our previous session. So that can be incredibly painful to feel like your father has chosen his new family over you, and the pain can linger and affect how you see yourself. I wonder if we could work on reframing the situation a bit. What would it be like to consider that his actions are less about your worth and more about his own limitations or choices?
I've thought about that, but it's still hurtful to think that even if it was his own choice, that he would continue to choose his new wife and stepchildren over his only biological daughter.
Mhm. And that absolutely feels personal and understandable. What I'm suggesting is not to minimize your feelings, but to help you see that his choices might be influenced by factors that have little to do with your worth and who you are. For instance, he might be struggling with his own issues or guilt, or he might be trying to please his new wife, even if it hurts you. What do you think about that perspective?
Well, I know that's the case, like trying to please his new wife. There was definitely like a line drawn in the sand early on in the relationship before they even got married, that it was so bad that, you know, something bad happened, and you know, it was basically like choose me or choose her. And he in fact said he wasn't going to end up marrying her, but then did. He did marry her, and then it was kind of like, okay, I chose her, you know what I mean? And he actually told me at one point, you know, you need to choose to let her in or choose to not have me in your life. So I can't believe my own father gave me that ultimatum, or even say that to me. So that was extremely hurtful.
Yeah, that's very difficult. I can see how that, hurts you and puts you in a way where now it's like it's okay for you to protect yourself emotionally while still acknowledging your feelings. So this might also involve continuing to set those boundaries that we discussed before. How are you feeling about the boundaries that you set with him so far?
You know, I go back and forth on it because I this last boundary that I said, I had no communication with him. I decided not to tell him why I was cutting off contact, because I felt like he would only assume that I was being crazy or, you know, just being emotional as a woman. So I just cut contact completely. And, you know, sometimes it feels like it's hurting me more than him.
Makes sense. And would you say sometimes you still feel guilty?
Yes. Yeah, I do, you know, sometimes wonder if it's solely his circumstances of having to please her that, you know, keeps him in this predicament. But at the same time, I have to look at him as an adult, and he's able to make his own choices. And I do feel like he should stand up to her and say, you know, hey, this is my only daughter. Like, I'm going to have a relationship with her no matter what. And you knew that going into our marriage.
Mm-hmm. And that's true. But I am, proud of you for setting those boundaries for yourself. And for you, it's a form of self-care and not look at it as like a punishment. So it's about you protecting your well-being. And how would it feel to reframe that the guilt as an indication of you taking steps to care for yourself instead of looking at it as like a punishment towards you?
You make a good point, because, you know, I have children too. So I have his only grandchildren right now. And you mentioned that, you know, me protecting myself and self-care, but I also look at it as an extension to care for my children, that they don't have a relationship with the grandfather, or that, you know, he doesn't come around enough to protect them from the hurt that I'm feeling, you know. So they already don't have a relationship with their grandmother. So the fact that he's not present is even it's even more hurtful. Um, you know, really close to my dad in the sense that he's accomplished so much. He's a business owner, you know, he was high up in the military and he did all these great things. And I try to earn my love and validation through him by the things that I accomplish. So, well, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
No, just for not letting it seem like a punishment to you and setting those boundaries and having the self-care, like you said, just looking out for your kids as well too. So I think you are doing a great job when it comes to that, and just remaining firm on the boundaries that you have set. So do you, like, how is the dynamic between like you and your kids when it comes to like dealing with your dad? Do they ask about their grandfather?
No, they know that when he comes around, he's usually only there for a few minutes at a time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes before he has to leave. And I often find myself having to talk so fast just to be able to get out what I want to say because I know our time is limited. And then also it's hurtful because he'll bring over things for the kids thinking he's helping us out, you know, but it's all of my stepmom's clothes and used items in a trash bag. So I mean, in symbolism, it's like here's the crap that she doesn't want anymore. You know what I mean? This is what you're good enough for. You know what I mean? You know, I can't remember when the kids actually got like a gift from a store. It's always been her hand-me-downs.
Oh, wow. And I bet for you as a mom, that's hard to see too.
Yes, it is.
And that's tough. But I would say like I said, don't punish yourself. You did what you had to do, and now it's like time for you to kind of reframe how you've been thinking about it, and also acknowledging your accomplishments and making it like so that you work this hard for your kids, so that you're showing them better.
Yes. And Tajre, also, this is how I looked at it, setting this boundary recently, is that because my relationship is so poor with my stepmom, that you know, I know that if something happens to my dad, I'm not going to be able to go to his funeral, or I probably won't even know about the funeral. And so I was like, why am I'm grieving my dad now while he's living practically, because if something happens, he's getting up there in age, I'm not going to be able to have any contact. And I know that's how it is because right now they live in a ritzy neighborhood, you know, with security, and I'm not allowed basically in there unless my dad adds me to the security list. And they constantly take my name off of the security list. So, you know what I mean? So, and she's gotten upset before because they'll text her phone saying that I'm, you know what I mean, approaching security, and then my dad gets questioned why I'm coming over. So anyways, if it's like that now, I can only imagine that I won't have access to him, you know, if there was a funeral or so forth. So in a way, I feel like I'm protecting myself by setting that boundary now.
So that you don't get even more hurt when something does happen to him and he passes.
Yes.
Okay. So how does that all make you feel? Like, not so he passes and you won't be able to, like, you know, have your final words or go to see him. How does that all make you feel?
I just have to chalk it up to this is his choice. He has made this choice. You know, he chose to marry her after a significant event. She actually got upset because I had this toddler bed that was a hand-me-down from her son. It was 18 years old, a plastic bed frame, and she wanted it back, and she was throwing a fit late into the evening, and she was calling me derogatory names. Long story short is I told my dad that I would make arrangements with my mom so that they could get it from a mutual place and that he wouldn't come to my house. So he reassured me that they weren't coming to my house because they were threatening to drive down to my place. and to get the toddler bed back. And long story short is they actually did drive down to my house. My dad lied to me on the way there, and she ended up trying to threaten me with a crowbar to kill me. And I was pregnant at the time, so I ran inside, and my husband was out there, and he got tore up with the crowbar trying to get it away from her. Mm-hmm. And then she decided to take her Lincoln Navigator and ram our car through our garage. And so long story short is she got her nursing license taken away for a year due to assault with a deadly weapon and criminal mischief charges. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of resentment that she had towards me because of her own behavior. And with my dad being an officer at the time in the military, I was shocked that he would stay with somebody that would do something like that towards his own daughter, and that could possibly hurt his career.
Right. That was definitely a lot that you have went through with them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm glad you are where you are now, to kind of set those boundaries for yourself so that you're no longer able to get hurt in that way.
Yes, it definitely feels like her intention has been to hurt me all along. She even gets like professional photos taken with her adult kids and my dad and her together, and she used to text them to me as if this is his new family, And so I've put up with a lot, and I just feel like, what am I really getting from my dad other than a thumbs up emoji to a text, or a 5-minute visitation? I'd rather just not have a relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I can see how that kind of hurt you and put you in that position to make that decision. So I'd say you are doing a good job. And I would say, just remember, along with the homework, I would like you to practice reframing any guilt that you feel about setting boundaries. When those feelings arise, just remind yourself that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and care. You can write these down in a reflection, just for it to help you.
Yes.
And then I also think, like, these steps can be helpful in shifting your perspective and building a stronger sense of worth for yourself. And before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to discuss, or any concerns that kind of come up during this session?
No, I just thank you for being my therapist. You've helped me a lot already.
You're welcome, Stacey. And I'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.